So if you haven't had a chance to watch my unboxing and first impressions video of this bad boy, first and foremost, link is up there in the corner, but I'm just going to cut to the chase. I recently moved over from the 2018 11-inch iPad Pro to this, the 2021 M1 11-inch iPad Pro. And in this video, I'm going to give you my honest review of how this has held up over daily usage over the last week or so. Here we go. All right, so let's talk some specs. Just get them out of the way as we normally do. The display is, deep breath, an 11-inch Liquid Retina IPS LCD 120Hz HDR10 Dolby Vision screen. All right, it can get up to 600 nits, and it has a screen-to-body ratio of 82.9%. The resolution is 1668 by 2388. The body is the typical aluminum back and frame that we see on all iPads. We've heard rumors of the next lineup of iPads having glass backs to support wireless charging, but we'll have to wait and see for that. The rear camera is a dual lens shooter, a 12 megapixel wide and a 10 megapixel ultra wide. It also supports 3D LiDAR scanner for depth detection. Video recording can be up to 4K at 60 frames per second. The front-facing camera is a 12 megapixel ultra-wide lens, which comes in handy for both Face ID and Center Stage, a new feature part of iPad OS for the M1 iPads, which allows the camera to essentially follow the individual of focus. Other than that, this lens can record up to 1080p at 60 frames per second. The battery, which I'm going to touch on just a little bit later in this review, is a beefy 7,538 milliamp hour battery, which pretty good for a tablet. And as you know, if you've been following me from the beginning, power consumption is pretty important to me. So like I said, we're going to cover that. You can get this iPad as either Wi-Fi only or Wi-Fi and cellular. If you get cellular, it is capable of 5G connectivity. In terms of storage, the iPad Pro lineup is available with 128, 256, and 512 gigabytes, all with 8 gigs of RAM. But if you're a power user, you can get this with either 1 or 2 terabytes of storage, and those come with 16 gigs of RAM. If you're looking for color, as long as you're okay with either silver or space gray, you're in luck. The model I have is 128 gig cellular space gray. So I've been using this constantly, daily, since my unboxing. I've been using it both, just for personal and work, and I have some thoughts and some feelings on it. First, I want to talk about the chipset, that Apple M1 processor. As impressive as the M1 processor is inside of, let's say, a MacBook or even the Mac Mini, I feel it's vastly underutilized in an iPad. I say that because the iPad lineup, whether Mini, Air, Base, or Pro, have always been speedy devices as they were. There really wasn't much need for an M1, at least on the surface of things. The same can be said here, but the thing is that this isn't really any faster than what you would expect an iPad to be. Where the M1 would really shine in an iPad is if we got like Mac OS style apps. I know that's highly unlikely, but it's something that we've been asking for a while. Apple has said that it's probably not going to happen, but I mean, never say never, right? An example of this would be that I've been hoping for creator tools like Final Cut Pro on an iPad, and I really feel like now could be the time. We'll just have to wait and see if Apple also believes that it's time. I picked the 11-inch, and I usually do, because in my opinion, it's easier to hold and handle. I also feel that, personally, I prefer the Liquid Retina LCD display this packs. I've never had any issues with it, including viewing from any angle, the brightness is perfect, and the uniformity feels better on my eyes. Not at all putting down the new mini LED display that's in the 12.9 inch, but I think at this point we've all heard about the blooming issues, which, in all fairness, are far worse in photos and videos than they are in person, and I'm speaking from experience as I have seen it for myself, and it's not nearly as bad as it was made out to be. Battery life on this thing is nuts, and I do attribute that to the excellent power efficiency of the M1 chip. My 2018 iPad Pro, when I first got it, would be dead in a day or two, which is what you come to expect from an iPad. However, the M1 iPad Pro, same size and all, can chug away for roughly 3 to 4 days before I have to charge it. That's with the Magic Keyboard on it most of the time, which adds a small but mentionable power draw. We heard recently that Apple is going to be implementing a way for apps to be able to ask for more RAM than the 5 gig limitation that they currently have on the M1 iPad. So we'll just have to wait and see how that pans out. But I do find that I've never really run into an issue with background apps getting lost. For instance, I could leave an app, go back to it hours later and it still works perfectly fine, but I'm sure the app is like, oh, I thought you forgot about me. It's whatever. Now, this brings me to my last point that I want to make, but this is more of a broader point that I need to make for like all devices and products. So allow me to segue into this cautionary mention. We've hit a point where most features and bonuses with software are in fact on a software level, not necessarily on hardware. I'm sure we've all heard at one point, like, your product is eventually going to be able to do this or this, and so on and so forth. As end users and consumers of these products, it is very important for us to remember to purchase these products based on what they can do now and not what the potential promise is down the road. There have been plenty of rumors floating around that Pro apps are going to be available on iPad just due to the M1 processor down the road, and there were a lot of individuals that were upset after WWDC because Apple essentially confirmed that it's not coming this year. I'd already mentioned it, but things like Final Cut Pro, for instance, I was hoping was going to be on iOS 15. Now, I do want to preframe that by saying I didn't buy this thinking that Final Cut Pro was going to be there, but a lot did. And I'd seen on Twitter a lot over the last few weeks, actually, you know what, since WWDC, that people intend on returning their iPads because they were so upset that certain apps that they thought might be on them aren't coming, or at least right now. And that's kind of where this whole rant or segue comes from, is the fact that a lot of individuals will purchase things now thinking that something is going to happen with them down the road, but you really shouldn't do that. If a product gives you some type of built-in feature or benefit that you like right now and has already been confirmed, have at it. But don't purchase something just because you think that it's going to bring this feature later down the road. So to kind of cap this review off, do I find that the 2021 iPad is awesome? Absolutely, I do. However, I will say that I didn't notice that big of a change between my 2018 iPad, which my wife is now using, to this one. So what I would say in this instance is that if you are using, let's say, the 2018 or even the 2020 iPad Pro, this might not necessarily be that big of an upgrade for you. If I were you, I might actually even hold on a little bit, but it is ultimately up to you. However, with that said, if you are using any type of iPad that is not a Pro and you have interest in going to a Pro, this is definitely the one that you'll want to go for. And if you are using an iPad Pro that is older than the 2018 model, same thing. This is definitely something you'd want to upgrade to. But do also keep in mind that if you're able to find the 2018 or 2020 at a discounted cost, go for that. You're not really going to be missing that much. Anyway, with that said, a couple of questions. Answer in the comments. Do you use an iPad right now? If you do, which one? And do you intend on upgrading to the 2021 M1 iPad Pro? I appreciate it if you hung in for this whole video. If you liked it, give me a thumbs up. And if you loved it, subscribe so you can help me build this channel into something huge. Take care. I'll see you in the next one.